Well, if you've been to any of the talks that I've given, or maybe other talks that you've seen elsewhere, you know there's two proteins on the outside of the virus. One called hemagglutinin, the other called neuraminidase. So H and N, hemagglutinin, neuraminidase. So the H1N1 means hemagglutinin subtype 1, neuraminidase subtype 1. And in fact, there's nothing new about H1N1 because we've had H1N1 circulating since 1918. That was the type of influenza virus that was first spread at that period in time. Well, swine flu is a funny name to actually give to a virus, or an influenza virus, because actually almost all of the influenza viruses that we see in humans actually come through swine first. The actual natural host of the influenza virus is ducks and other waterfowl, and they actually cannot transmit viruses directly to humans. They have to transmit the viruses through another species, and typically it's through pigs. So really there's nothing new about an influenza virus that appears having come through pigs. And in fact, humans probably give more influenza viruses back to pigs than the other way around. So. Well, certainly the initial reports were very scary. I mean, we had initial reports of a bunch of young, previously healthy people that were showing up on death's door and dying. And while that was true, once the whole outbreak had settled down, the actual numbers worked out to about one fatality amongst 500,000 people. So even though there was a lot of people who died who would otherwise not have been considered to die, on a big population basis wise, it was probably far more people that died in motor vehicle accidents over that period of time than actually died from the swine flu. Well, first of all, you want to protect yourself against getting the illness that the virus is going to bring. Now, most people obviously don't die from influenza, but what they do end up getting is they end up getting a significant illness that makes them feel really miserable for a week or longer. It can be high fevers, chills, aches, and if you've ever experienced true, full-blown influenza, it's not an illness that you want to get again. Not only that, but you're protecting all the people around you. So if you're vaccinated and then you don't get the influenza, chances are then you're not going to spread it on to anybody else. Both this new vaccine and the traditional seasonal flu vaccine, you can expect to have similar type symptoms. So most people, if they get anything, it's you get the sore arm. And personally, it means for me that most times after I get my flu vaccine, for a day or two, I don't really sleep on that side. But other than that, that's what most people can expect. There are, of course, people that have egg allergies in particular, and they can have allergic reactions to the vaccine. And some of them can be quite severe, so it's important that you speak up if you have an egg allergy. Then there are some rare complications that can occur. One year, I think it was 2002 or 2003, there was one particular manufacturer's strain of the vaccine that actually caused people to have bloodshot eyes and a bit of an asthma attack. But it was all very mild. It was dramatic because people had these red eyes all of a sudden, but in the long run it didn't actually cause any ongoing concerns. Then 1 year, it was 1976, there was an association between having the vaccine and getting a neurologic condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome. Now, it's still controversial as to whether or not the vaccine actually caused that or not, but if you believe the association, it worked out to about one case in a million who developed this Guillain-Barré syndrome. Now, it's a neurologic disease that's actually quite treatable. So you have to compare that, at the worst case scenario, 1 year, we had 1 in a million people who potentially developed a neurologic disease, versus even this year, even though the outbreak of this new H1N1 virus has just started, we've already had 2 per million Canadians die of the new influenza. So on the balance, if you want to risk 1 in a million for getting a disease or 2 in a million for dying and probably much more than 2 per million. The odds are really very much in your favor for taking the vaccine. Well, there's been a lot of stuff in the lay press about, oh, this is a new vaccine and we've got to be worried about it. But in essence, every year that we do the influenza vaccination, it is a slightly different vaccine. There are typically 3 viruses in each of the seasonal flu vaccines. There's an H1N1, and we've had an H1N1 basically since day one when we've been doing vaccines. We also have an H3N2 and an influenza B. And every 2 to 3 years, each of those components is changed. So in essence, almost every year, we've got at least 1 or 2 of the components in the vaccine have been changed. And they go through, the process of making sure that they're safe. And this new swine flu vaccine or new H1N1 vaccine, it's gone through the same process. So, we're as confident about the side effects from that as we are about the regular seasonal flu. Well, this is one of the things that's been raised. It does, but it's such a small amount. Apparently, there's less mercury in it than in a tuna fish sandwich. Now, I don't like tuna fish to start with, so I don't eat many tuna fish sandwiches. But for those people who do, apparently the mercury is comparable to that. So, not enough to be of a concern. Well, you should encourage everybody that you know to get vaccinated, and most importantly, people in your social circle. And you do it for 2 reasons. One, to directly protect them, because anybody who gets vaccinated is going to have a decreased risk of acquiring the influenza virus. Even if they do acquire the influenza virus, you have a much smaller chance of getting severe disease if you've been previously vaccinated, because your immune system is charged. It already recognizes this virus as being foreign, and it has a head start. And then not only that, but if you don't get influenza, you're not going to pass it on to members of your social circle. Mm-hmm. There's another concept called herd immunity, and basically what it talks about, it refers to a herd of cattle, say. Yeah. If you can vaccinate everybody in your social circle against influenza, and then your vaccine either doesn't work or you forget to get it yourself, if everybody that you come in contact with has been vaccinated and does not have influenza, you're not going to develop influenza either. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they don't get vaccinated, some of them are going to get influenza, they're going to be in contact with you, and chances are that you're going to get influenza too. So it's really important to get as many people in your social circle vaccinated, because their being vaccinated decreases your chances of getting the flu as well. Right. The vaccine is safe for pregnant women. It's a killed virus, so it's just basically a bunch of proteins that are ground up. There are 2 vaccines available. One has adjuvant and one does not. And the one that lacks the adjuvant has been tested in pregnant women and is safe, and that's the one that should preferentially be given to pregnant women. The one with the adjuvant, also probably safe, but they haven't done the studies yet. Okay. And that also applies to young children as well. They should be given the vaccine without the adjuvant if it's available. Okay. But definitely, pregnant women are, in certain countries, have been seen to be at much higher risk of developing bad disease than the general public. So you really want to protect yourself if you're pregnant, because you're protecting yourself and you're protecting your fetus. Mm-hmm.